I'm also thinking about sort of an aside, but I've been thinking a lot lately about the fact that colonization stole our proximity to spirit, to spirituality.
Say more.
So the way that race got constructed in the US, there needed to be a construction. And so the construction said, only the white masculine that procreates can be proximate to the divine, can be proximate to spirit, can be proximate to the universe. And as such, only the white masculine that procreates is worth health and worth wealth. And so I think we get a little bit, it hurts our creativity to imagine what shared structure could be, because that original structure was so uncreative and unimaginative because it was about control. So what would it look like to imagine structures that hold us and allow for expansiveness, but that aren't about control? And then I wonder, what's coming up for me when someone in my spiritual community that I picked wonders with me? Why am I so brittle that I can't hear a question from my own spiritual community? Am I sort of low in my own practice? And there's we talked last fall about elements of white dominant culture, and two of the hallmarks. One is fear of open conflict, that all conflicts must be immediately finished, and there should be agreement, and someone should be right and someone should be wrong, and a right to comfort, a belief that my harmony should never be disrupted. So we have to practice just sort of allowing those questions with each other, not about calling out, but knowing that if we have these ends, right, like these really powerful end statements, that if we're all wandering in our own sort of direction, we won't realize those ends. They'll continue to be sort of interesting philosophical questions, and not practices that actually come to ground.
I'm noticing my feet are tapping the ground. That's usually an indication that I'm excited about what I'm hearing. I'm excited, Alfonso, because this notion of the white masculine procreating, right, identity that colonizes us. And so because that structure was so hurtful and so oppressive, we ran from that structure. And I'll name that structure. As an ordained clergy, I will say one of those structures was religion, Christian religion in particular, in my background. At one point, there was this notion that theology was the queen of the sciences. At its worst, it was arrogant. In its hubris, it was hurtful and damaging to people. But at its best, and I'll say this so people hear this, at its best, why theology was the queen of the sciences was because in a university, they needed a discourse, they needed a conversation to hold the humanities, the arts, the sciences. They needed something to hold the university together without necessarily minimizing the differences and assimilating everybody into some singular identity. That's a tall order. But because queen of the theology as a queen of the sciences at its worst was dominating and hurtful, we moved away from that kind of theology and we threw the baby out with the proverbial bathwater. But as a faith community, I don't know how we can have a conversation that is not a theological conversation, because that's what theology is. It is a unifying conversation. It is about covenant. It is about wondering together. It is about accountability in the best way that we evoke from one another our very best aspirations and selves. So without the among, I don't know if we have a credible theological conversation that would be absolutely the place as a faith community to have, right? We shy away from such significant theological conversation that can connect us without assimilating us, but it holds us together as we go into ethno-relativism and multiculturalism and diversity. I think that is the gift and is also the profound difficulty of liberal theology.